7 obsolete industries to exit immediately. Your career is on a countdown timer. You just don't know it yet. The ground is shifting under the global economy, and entire professions are being rendered obsolete in real time. This isn't a slow, predictable change. It's a rapid system upgrade, and any component that is no longer compatible will be deleted. Most people treat their industry like a permanent feature of the world. It's not. An industry is just a temporary solution to a market problem. When a better, faster, cheaper solution emerges, driven by new technology or new models, the old solution becomes a relic. This video is your tactical briefing. It's not about panic, it's about precision. We are not here to predict the future, we are here to analyze the data that is right in front of us. We're going to bypass the media hype and break down 7 specific industries that are showing clear, undeniable signals of systemic decay. For each one, we will deconstruct the why, the core reason its operating model is failing. Think of this as your early warning system, your chance to get out, reskill, and redeploy your capital and your energy before the exit doors close for good. Let's begin.
The information filter failure. Let's start with what we used to call legacy media. This includes traditional newspapers, magazines, and broadcast journalism. For over a century, their core function was not just reporting news, it was filtering reality. They owned the high-cost infrastructure, the printing presses, the broadcast towers, the distribution trucks. This physical bottleneck gave them a monopoly on what information the public received. They were the curators, the gatekeepers. Their business model was simple: aggregate a massive audience by being the only credible game in town, then sell access to that audience to advertisers. This model worked perfectly as long as the cost of distributing information was high. Then the internet happened. First, it completely demonetized their distribution model. The cost to distribute an article online is functionally zero. The physical bottleneck that protected their entire industry evaporated in less than a decade. Second, it destroyed their monopoly on creation. Now, anyone with a phone can report from a live event. An expert in any field can publish analysis that is more detailed and accurate than a generalist reporter's. The gatekeepers were bypassed. The advertisers, who are completely unsentimental, simply follow the attention. Why pay a premium for a vague demographic in a city newspaper when you can pay less to target a specific user with precision on Google or Facebook? The revenue that supported the entire legacy infrastructure was rerouted to a more efficient system. So the industry isn't dying because people lost interest in news. It's dying because its fundamental operating system, centralized filtering, and high-cost physical distribution is obsolete. The roles tied to that old hardware are obsolete. The print ad salesman, the physical layout designer, even the traditional beat reporter, whose job was to be a human router for information that now flows freely. The value has shifted from access to information to synthesis and verification of it. The opportunity isn't in working for the old filter, it's in becoming a trusted independent node in the new decentralized network.
The physical shelf space trap. The second obsolete model is any business whose primary value is tied to physical shelf space. Think traditional retail, malls, big box stores. For a century, their entire operating system was based on one simple advantage: location. They were the physical interface between the supply chain and the consumer. That advantage is now a liability. Let's deconstruct the physics of this. A physical store is constrained by its 4 walls. The amount of product it can offer is finite. It is a curated, limited selection dictated by what management thinks will sell in that specific geographic area. This creates massive inefficiency. You have high overhead, rent, staff, utilities, security, all to support a limited inventory. Then the internet delivered a fatal blow: the infinite shelf. An e-commerce platform like Amazon isn't a store, It's a search engine connected to a global network of warehouses. Its inventory is virtually unlimited. The cost to display one more product online is essentially zero. This flips the entire business model. The old model forces the customer to travel to a limited selection of products. The new model delivers a near infinite selection of products directly to the customer. The friction is gone. The cost structure is also completely different. A physical retail empire requires thousands of expensive high-traffic locations. An e-commerce giant needs a few dozen highly optimized, low-cost warehouses built on cheap land. The fixed overhead per transaction plummets. But the most critical failure of physical retail is the data vacuum. A store manager knows what's sold. They have no idea who walked in, looked at 10 items, and walked out. They don't know what you almost bought. Online, every single click, every search, every second you hesitate over a product is a data point. This data is used to optimize, personalize, and market with terrifying precision. What you're seeing now, malls turning into ghost towns, legacy brands filing for bankruptcy, is not a retail apocalypse. It is the logical outcome of a superior system displacing an inferior one. The value is no longer in the physical location. It's in the efficiency of the logistics network and the intelligence of the data platform. If your career or business is built on being the local guy with the stuff on the shelf, you are operating on a sinking platform.
The carbon countdown. This isn't about climate politics. This is about capital allocation and technological superiority. The fossil fuel industry is operating on borrowed time, not because of protests, but because its core business model is being made economically obsolete by a superior technology. For a century, the entire global economy was built on a single operating system, centralized energy production based on burning carbon. You find it, you dig it up, you transport it, you burn it. That system is now being displaced by a decentralized, technology-driven one. Think about the cost curve. The price of solar panels and battery storage has been in a state of free fall for over a decade. Solar is now, in many parts of the world, the cheapest form of electricity humans have ever produced. This isn't a forecast. It's a present-day reality. When a new technology becomes fundamentally cheaper and more efficient than the legacy system's collapse is not a matter of if, but when. The second signal is capital flight. Major investment funds, banks, and insurance companies are systematically de-risking their portfolios by divesting from oil and gas. They see the long-term liability of stranded assets, trillions of dollars of oil and coal reserves that will become worthless because it will be economically irrational to ever extract them. Smart money is not sentimental. It follows the data, and the data points to renewables. Finally, look at the demand side. The largest consumer of oil is the transportation sector. The global auto industry has committed almost universally to an electric future. This isn't a niche market anymore. This is a full-scale platform shift. Every electric vehicle that hits the road permanently deletes a chunk of future demand for gasoline. This isn't just about oil rig workers or coal miners. This obsolescence wave will hit the entire ecosystem. Pipeline engineers, logistics coordinators, refinery technicians, even financial analysts who built careers trading carbon-based commodities. The energy grid of the future is a technology network, not a pipeline network. The tactical imperative is to pivot into the industries building that new grid. Battery technology, smart grid software, renewable energy deployment, and material science. The countdown has already started.
The human API obsolescence. Let's deconstruct the human API. This is any role where the primary function is to act as a biological bridge between two incompatible information systems. You read an invoice and manually input the data into accounting software. You pull numbers from a spreadsheet and copy them into a presentation. You process insurance claims by transferring information from a PDF form into a proprietary database. In these roles, you are the modem. Your brain is the processing unit, and your hands are the data cable. For decades, this was a necessary function. Systems couldn't talk to each other,
so a human was paid to translate. That requirement is now being systematically deleted. The technology isn't even futuristic. It's here now. It's called robotic process automation, or RPA. Think of it as software that watches you do a task, learns it, and then executes it perfectly 24/7 at 1,000 times your speed for a fraction of your salary. AI-powered optical character recognition can now read and understand documents, structured or unstructured, with higher accuracy than a human operator. And modern software is being built with direct API integrations from the ground up, eliminating the need for a translator entirely. The two systems simply connect and exchange data. The human bridge is no longer required. From a systems perspective, the logic is brutal and undeniable. Why would any rational economic actor pay for a slow, error-prone, expensive biological process when a cheap, instant, and flawless digital process is available? They wouldn't. This isn't about data entry clerks alone. This is about a massive category of white-collar work that functions as a cognitive assembly line. If your primary value is moving information from point A to point B without fundamentally changing it, you are not performing a cognitive task. You are performing a mechanical one, and all mechanical tasks are eventually targeted for automation. The window to pivot out of these roles is closing. The critical shift is from being a conduit of information to being an analyst of it. The value is no longer in moving the data, but in the strategic decisions you make based on what the data means.
The centralized dispatch collapse. Let's talk about the taxi industry. Not because it's special, but because it's a perfect case study in system failure. The old model was simple. A central company owned a fleet of cars and employed a dispatcher. This dispatcher was a human router. They were the bottleneck. If you needed a ride, you called the dispatcher. They would radio a driver. The entire system was constrained by the number of cars the company owned and the dispatcher's ability to manage information. The assets were inefficiently deployed. Cars sat idle in one part of the city while demand surged in another. There was massive friction in the system, waiting, hailing, paying. Then platforms like Uber and Lyft emerged. They didn't build a better taxi. They built a better dispatch system. They completely bypassed the central hub. Their innovation wasn't the car, it was the network. They realized the problem wasn't a lack of cars, but a lack of information connecting available cars to people who needed them. They built a decentralized information layer that sat on top of existing, underutilized assets, people's personal vehicles. This new system is brutally efficient. It uses real-time data to match supply and demand with surgical precision. There is no central dispatcher. The algorithm is the dispatcher. It scales instantly without buying a single car. To get more capacity, it simply onboards more drivers onto the network. This pattern, the collapse of centralized dispatch, is a threat to any industry built around a central gatekeeper. Think freight brokerage, local delivery services, or any business where the primary value is manually connecting a customer to a service provider. The core vulnerability is this. If your business model or your job role is primarily acting as a human router, you are the bottleneck. A decentralized software platform can perform that function faster, at a larger scale, and with near zero marginal cost. You cannot compete with that. The signal is clear. Exit any role that is simply routing information and assets. That function is being automated into oblivion.
The broadcast bottleneck. For decades, media operated on a simple principle, one to many. A central tower, a satellite, or a cable head end acted as a bottleneck. They controlled the flow of information, broadcasting a single stream to millions of passive receivers. This is the architecture of cable TV, satellite services, and terrestrial radio. The core business model was not content, it was control of the distribution channel. That entire system is now obsolete. The bottleneck has been shattered. The disruptor wasn't a better type of broadcast, it was a completely different protocol, the internet. High-speed, on-demand data access doesn't just offer another channel, it fundamentally inverts the power dynamic. The model flipped from push to pull. You no longer wait for a network to push a program to you at 8 p.m., You pull exactly what you want when you want it from a global library. This destroys the two pillars of the old broadcast model. First, it destroys the economic model of bundling. You were forced to pay for 500 channels just to access the 5 you actually watched. This is a system designed for the provider, not the user. Streaming services, in contrast, allow you to subscribe directly to the content libraries you value. It's a more efficient, user-centric allocation of capital. Second, it destroys the advertising model. Broadcast advertising was a blunt instrument, blasting a generic message to millions in the hope that a tiny fraction were the right audience. Digital platforms offer surgical precision. They can target ads based on user data with terrifying accuracy, providing a clear and measurable return on investment that traditional broadcasting can never match. The core failure is simple. The broadcast model treats the audience as a monolithic, captive entity. The new networked model treats every single user as an individual market. Content creators no longer need a network gatekeeper. They can build their own audience directly through platforms like this one. If your career or business relies on sitting at that central choke point, controlling the flow of content, you are not just in a dying industry, you are managing a relic of a deleted architecture.
The middleman deletion. Let's break down any industry that functions as a middleman. A middleman is not a specific job title. It's a system function. Their role exists for one reason: to bridge a gap caused by friction. This friction can be a lack of information, a lack of access, or a complex transaction process. The middleman charges a toll to cross this bridge. The internet is a friction deletion machine. It collapses information and access gaps instantly. When the gap disappears, the bridge becomes pointless, and the person charging the toll becomes obsolete. This is not a personal failure. It is a system upgrade. The classic case study is the travel agent. Their value was rooted in a massive information gap. They had access to airline and hotel booking systems that the public did not. To plan a complex trip, you needed them. Then, platforms like Expedia, Kayak, and Google Flights emerged. They didn't just give you the agent's access, they gave you better access with more data, more options, and instant execution for free. The information friction was deleted. The middleman was deleted. Now, apply this model to other industries. Look at real estate agents. Historically, their power came from exclusive access to the multiple listing service, or MLS. If you wanted to see all available homes, you had to go through them. Zillow and Redfin blew that model apart. They put the MLS in everyone's pocket. The information friction is gone. The only value left is navigating the complex transaction and closing process. But tech companies are now ruthlessly automating that paperwork too. The 6% commission, a toll based on old-world friction, is no longer justifiable when technology is doing the heavy lifting. The system is being upgraded. Consider financial services. The old-school stockbroker who you called to buy 100 shares of a company was a middleman. They were the gatekeeper to the market. Then, platforms like E-Trade and Robinhood gave everyone a direct terminal to Wall Street. The access friction was deleted. The transaction cost dropped from hundreds of dollars to zero. The middleman was deleted. The core principle is this: if your primary function is to connect buyer A to seller B, and your value is based on the difficulty of that connection, you are on a countdown timer. Technology will always find a way to build a more efficient, lower-cost connection. To survive, you must stop being a simple conduit for information and start creating unique value that cannot be automated. That means providing strategic insight, creative application, or a level of trust and customization that a platform cannot replicate. Otherwise, you are just a bridge waiting for the river to dry up.
So, what's the takeaway? Obsolescence is not a threat. It is a signal. It's clean data telling you where the market is going and, more importantly, where it's leaving. The fatal error is emotional attachment to a dying system. Your job is not your identity. An industry is not a tribe. They are temporary structures. The effective operator analyzes the data, identifies the new, superior operating model, and executes a pivot without hesitation. Your loyalty is to the outcome, not the method. If you are ready to stop reacting to the future and start building systems to command it, subscribe to Capital Sanctum. The mission continues.